Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Leadership Void podcast. I'm Enrique with my co-host Vince to bring you the best in our veteran, military spouse, and first responder community. And Vince will introduce today's guest.
Hey, thanks, Enrique. Happy December again, everyone. Again, another veteran here from the Florida state, the Sunshine State, from Tampa, that is. We have Dave McAleer. Guess what? He is the co-founder and CEO of Jobhaus. So we're excited to have you on our show. Dave, let's start off and tell us a little bit about you.
So good morning, Vince, and good morning, Enrique, and good morning, everybody. My name is Dave McAleer, as introduced. Thank you for taking the time. Let's see, where to start. So born and raised overseas. My father worked for the American Embassy, did a lot of traveling growing up, lived in Cairo, Egypt for about 5 years, lived in the Philippines, lived in Indonesia, lived in Sudan. So did a lot of traveling as a kid. Came back to the United States, went to college, joined the Army in 1989. Yeah, I'm a little bit older than some of you. But the bottom line, it was a great journey. I am a veteran, an entrepreneur, and a recruiter by trade. During my 20-year career in the Army, I served enlisted and as an officer. So I'm a Mustang. Came in at E1, made it to sergeant, E5, and then senior major, declined lieutenant colonel and retired. After 24 years, I thought it was time to hang it up. I've served in both conventional and special operations unit. I wasn't that guy that kicked down the doors, but I was the guy that recruited that guy that kicked down the doors. Worked with the SEALs and the operators from Fort Bragg. Just an honor to walk amongst giants, as we say. With regards to leadership, I've been an NCO, leading a small team. I've been a lieutenant and a captain and a major. And now as a business owner with my own company and employees in the civilian sector, a little bit different, but they're both veterans, so kind of the same. And my partner and co-founder is my wife, so that introduces some very exciting dynamics in the home. But we work well as a team, and she hasn't fired me yet, so just happy to be here.
Well, we're happy about that. I'll tell you, because it would be something to have to go get your own job again if you got fired. But thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much for the dynamics of your service. You know, Mustangs, for those that don't know, is an individual that served both on the enlisted side and officer side. And if you ask me, has the most well-rounded experience in the military to help those out there. So we're happy that you are at the head of this Jobhaus, which I'm excited to hear about. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Jobhaus, we just actually had our 1-year anniversary yesterday, and we're a recruiting firm. Thank you. We're a recruiting firm based here in Tampa, Florida. Bottom line is we partner with companies and recruit for their job openings and their hard to fills. Because of our background, we are very, very heavy veteran. We look for the veterans, and I mean, first and foremost, as a veteran, I want to help them find roles. And I know we're going to talk about transition here shortly, but any help that I can do in linking up world-class veteran talent with world-class employees into incredible careers post-military, that's my highest calling. We joked, I don't know if you remember, the lottery got to over $1 billion a few weeks ago, and somebody asked, Dave, what are you going to do if you won? I said, I'm going to do exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm going to be helping the veteran community find jobs. Now, I may be in a better building and have a better car, but I'm still going to do this. I'm still going to do what I'm doing, so I love it. Again, we focus on prior service, military and veterans. We also spend a great deal of time in the military transition assistance area, because as we all know, a lot of the military people don't transition well. And having been an officer, having been an NCO, having been conventional, having been special operations, I've actually transitioned twice because I was a retiree recall, came back to active duty in 2011. And then now having been a headhunter and a corporate recruiter on the outside, trying to hire those people, if you reverse engineer the process, then you can, I don't mean this in a negative way, but you can school transitioning military personnel on how to get that career. So that's key in what we do. We have a total of 4 recruiters on our team, myself and my wife included. We're both recruiters. And we have 4 additional staff personnel. We got in-house counsel, FSO, human resources, and a couple other people. But that's it. I mean, we're Jobhaus. We're small but mighty. And someday I hope we're going to become a household name. So when military transition people come out, they say, hey, let's see what Jobhaus has for transition assistance and all. Let's see what jobs they have to offer.
Absolutely. Kudos to you and your vision to have Jobhaus even available, because the transition is difficult, and we're going to dive into it here in a second. But you, your wife, and the team of 4, the 6 of you, the half dozen, right, to grow, and hopefully every transitional career in the military coming out. But you talked about difficulties. So now let's understand a little bit more and share with the audience those challenges from both perspectives, the military transition and the hiring veterans in new careers.
So that's a great question. So generally speaking, people who've been in the military, especially retirees, okay, they've been in the military for 20 plus years, sometimes 30. They've never had, or very rarely have had, to interview for a job. They receive orders and they go. And finding a job in today's environment is pretty complex. It's more than just emailing a resume. And like any other complex process, there are a lot of steps. And it's not that the military members can't learn how; they just need to be shown the way. It's also important to note that, and I tell people this often: if you've served in the military, you have tremendous background and experience. And although some people will say not, most of it does translate. At the end of the day, if we're not carrying a rifle and we're in Iraq or Afghanistan, we're back in the rear with the gear, so to speak. We get up. I mean, we do PT and we have different haircuts. But at the end of the day, we get to work at a certain time. Expectations are managed. Email, meetings, PowerPoint. We do the same thing that our civilian counterparts do. The trick is translating that verbiage and language and terms into terms that the civilian sector can understand, and then finding that, I tell everyone, you're a puzzle piece. You're a very important puzzle piece, but you need to know where you fit, okay? So that's part of it as well. Many military members don't know how to network and network properly. They don't realize the power of networking. LinkedIn, obviously a big thing. That's how we met and that's how we connected. Very, very, very big. Social media is amazing. And then just being able to target those companies, target those jobs, and then finding a champion for you within that company is key to this entire process. Because generally speaking, when a person has 20 years of experience, they're probably applying for some pretty important jobs. And those jobs have the competition's high. A lot of people are applying, and there could be 30, 40, 50, 60 resumes, in that stack that people have to comb through and to get you to the next level. So understanding that understanding how to network with those key personnel within the companies is key, and it's not that difficult. You just need to be shown the way. It's kind of like the GPS, you know what I mean? I mean, to drive from here to Tacoma, from Tampa to Tacoma, can be challenging, but if you use the GPS, which is the military transition roadmap, it can get you there. And then the network isn't the whole thing. Some people think that the resume, if I got a great resume, it's over. No, the resume just gets you to the dance. All right, and the dance is called the interview. All right, so let's back up and talk about the resume. A lot of military personnel, what they'll do is they'll either hire somebody or they'll copy off of somebody. They'll develop a good resume, generally 2 to 3 pages. But that doesn't capture, Vince as a professional, and that certainly doesn't capture Enrique or Dave. So really, the resume is only important when you are actually applying for a particular job, because when you apply for a job, there's a job description and there's all those lists of requirements. If you don't have that in your resume, you don't get picked up. So these are just some of the things we teach them to navigate through that situation: how to network, how to create a resume that applies directly to the role that you're seeking. And then you talk about interview prep. That's a whole nother animal, and when you're a sergeant major or when you're an E8, E9, a warrant officer, a major lieutenant colonel or a captain, and to sit in front of a panel of 4 or 5 and basically defend your position, that can be intimidating, and you may not be used to that. And but the bottom line at the end of the day is the interview panel wants to hire you. You just gotta, it's like speed dating, and you have, they call it the kabuki dance. You just have to dance well. And so we just map all that process. We manage expectations. I mean, honestly, I have sat in the last 20 years, I have probably sat on 5,000 plus interviews. And we at Jobhaus, we understand with a certain, with a high level of predictability, what you're going to be asked, what you should say, how you should answer the behavioral questions, what you should bring, what questions that you ask at the very end. I mean, all those things is just reverse engineering the process. The most important thing is a lot of people who come out of the military, they think, I'm a leader or I'm a project manager. Well, that's great. But they're not hiring you to be a leader, but they are. They're hiring you for a specific job position, and that job position has a title. So when a person gets out of the military, and I know it's hard, you got to boil down all that experience into 3 or 4 job titles, because that's how people are hired, by the job title. Recruiters are hiring an Intel analyst. They're hiring a senior director in data science. So it's coupling the leadership, but your expertise is what's most important. Not I'm a leader. It's I can coach, teach, and mentor people in this field, and this is how I can impact your bottom line. So these are the conversations that we teach people. We're not telling them to lie. We're just telling them how to say and present what you do in a meaningful way to a particular company in order to get a job. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And you was talking, and in my head, I saw this whole A Few Good Men, this senior person on the stand, and the panel's asking questions, and he's like, "I'm working for J2. You can't handle the truth."
Well, I can't tell you the truth.
Right. So, yeah. So I mean, I could see that happening more often than not, and military do not get that type of transition help in order to get you to that place. And so I'm happy that you are heading this for veterans and those transitioning, whether they retired or served and out, which is amazing. So, the future's coming. We're almost at 23. And so what's the horizon look like for Jobhaus? I know you guys have a lot of great things in store.
So, we are going to focus, although we're national, because now we have positions that, all over the United States and international for some deployable contracting positions. They say start small and really carve out a niche. We're going to focus on Tampa. Tampa is there's a whole slew of reasons why it's incredible. MacDill Air Force Base is out here. People are transitioning every single month. So what's the future? We're going to grow. We're going to partner with military-friendly companies here in the local area who are looking for, E5s, E6s, captains, warrants, who are willing to understand the value of a veteran and are willing to take a chance, so to speak. Because anytime you hire anybody, you're taking a chance, regardless. And there's some amazing veteran talent out there. So number one is growth. The other thing is we're gonna network and also just look for additional opportunities to help. Well, so with military transition, I want to provide information, the roadmap to everybody for free. I don't want to charge anybody. I don't want to say, if you work with us, we'll go ahead and give you the information, because there's some companies out there that are doing that. They're niche, and I'm not getting on them about that. But I think that information needs to be to everybody, free. Here's the roadmap. Here's how you get out. And then we're going to offer you tailored solutions, because it's a conversation on the phone too. I can't just hand Vince or Enrique a to-do list of 60 things to do. I mean, that's overwhelming. So we're going to coach, teach, and mentor. We're putting some programs and some things in place that people are going to be able to just click, add their resume to our database, and here they're going to have a wealth of information on how to transition, and we're going to make it free.
Totally love the fact that first and foremost, Tampa starts small, but you're already national and internationally out there and growing your team. Giving them that roadmap is key, but also I think the coach mentoring and letting them know that they have bumpers, right? When they starting this process is so important. So Jobhaus is doing some great things. So Dave, thank you for that. Let's transition, talk about your leadership and what you have done. Let's kick it off and talk about what you do to help you thrive in your professional life. What aids you in doing so?
Well, I think you have to approach leadership with humility. Okay. And by that, I mean, no matter how much experience you've had, no matter what title you've had, whether it be general or CEO or whatever, you can always be learning. And like in military, there's mentorship programs. So number one, to answer your question, I'm always learning, always. I'm in my 50s and I'm reading every day, I'm learning every day, and people say success leaves clues. So I study other leaders, I study what they've done, how they failed and how they succeeded. The other thing is I seek out real life mentors, and there are some here that I can just sit down and say, hey, how did you do it? So I'm actually meeting with a mentor who's a retired general who's had many businesses, and we sit together quarterly. And he asked me some very key questions, and focusing on the basics is important as well. On LinkedIn, believe it or not, it's not just about getting a job. I've grown my network to I've got about 24,000 followers, and certainly not bragging. But in 24,000 followers, people provide a lot of content, and they provide industry content. So I'm always learning about, artificial intelligence and the way ahead in recruiting, and these are things that we're seeing, and these are places that people are going. Because if I can't operate in a nutshell, as a leader, we have to be as cognizant about the environment as much as possible. I talked about studying successful people, and just growing your network, talking to people, always learning, and kind of constantly assessing. So in the morning, I'm a morning person because of military training. I keep a journal. Don't laugh. But I keep a journal, and I kind of record, the direction that I want to go, things that went well, and things that aren't going well. I pray, and I pray for wisdom and knowledge. My wife often gives me feedback only when I ask. You guys know how that works. You got to ask the question, how am I doing? Because sometimes you may think you're doing great, but then you may be missing the mark entirely. It's important to be self-aware, but it's also important to know how you're perceived by others, because that's critical. Leadership it's a culmination of a whole slew of factors, and it comes in all shapes and sizes. I've seen people in the military who are loud and boisterous, who are great leaders, and I've seen the quiet professional who just walked into the room and changed the temperature just because people just knew that he or she were in charge, and that if you needed something, they would be there for you. And leadership is more about do what I say. It's about influence, and not to use a corny phrase, people don't care about what you know until they know how much you care. You got to break down those walls, and you got to seek first to understand and to be understood. So it's a whole slew of factors, and it takes a lifetime to really figure it out. By the time we figure it out, we're ready to write our memoirs on our book and go out fishing or playing golf. But the bottom line is you can always learn from others, always be learning, and get feedback from the people, not just your peers, but the people that work for you and the people that you work for.
Yeah, mentorship and feedback are two things that are key to our development for anyone that is not just on the leadership route, but in life. And so thank you for sharing that. Now, I know that both on the enlisted side and officer side, you had many people give you advice and give you words of wisdom that you were able to lead by. And would you like to share some of those with the emergent leaders that are listening today?
Well, I've always been learning. Number one, seek out mentors. That's really, really big. Study leadership. I mean, you can really can't get some books, and I've got some. I would certainly love to send you offline a list of books that have made an impact on my life. Um, and being self-aware is very important. Setting goals is helpful. Um, Success leaves clues for sure. And the human experience is a beautiful thing, man. And it starts. I've been working in the workplace for over 30 years, and you pick up a lot of things along the way, and you pick up a great leadership moment, and you pick up poor leadership moments too. So I think that's important to capture those things, and take notes of those things, because I think what you think about and what's on the forefront of your mind is actually what you become and how you act out, and what you focus on also. Colin Powell, who I used to study a lot, never had a chance to meet him, but I did correspond with him while he was still alive in a general. He said, perpetual optimism is a combat multiplier. So remaining positive is extremely important, because it's just the direction that you look is the direction of things that you receive. If that makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense. Having that frame of mind is so important and key and target for your growth and for the growth of your team. To your fact that you mentioned that leadership is about influencing. So you as a leader have to be grounded, be self-aware, have great mentors, those already are out there fishing and want to give back, right, to help you grow. And now, Dave, talk about a memorable leadership aha moment that you like to share with our audience today.
So I was years ago. I was in Iraq, and I was in an operations center with a flurry of opportunity of activity, and we had multiple operations going on, and there was a leader. He was the ops officer. I can't mention his name without his permission, but anyways, he was in charge of the whole show, so to speak, and things were going wrong in multiple different areas. And everyone was looking to him for leadership. And I watched him, and he was masterful. He was calm. He was relaxed. And I tell you, when you're stressed, you make poor decisions. We all know that. And somehow he was able to maintain his composure. Infantry officer, ranger, just an incredible. We were both majors, and I went up and talked to him one time, and I kept calling him sir, and he said, "Dave, I'm a major just like you. We are the same." And I said, "We are not the same, Tom. We are just not the same." But the bottom line is that ability to have that competence, to stay cool under pressure, and not to be that fire and brimstone, loud, kick over the trash can leader. You know what I mean? To treat people well, because he was calm, which kept everyone else fairly calm. And that was a light bulb moment for me, because that can be achieved. You can be a great leader and still be humble and still treat people well. And regardless of what's going on around you, even if you don't have all the right answers, you can still be the maestro. And that's something to shoot for, because there's times when, I'm driving out in Tampa and I get all upset and heated. That's a whole other conversation. But the ability to maintain as a leader, that's important. Yeah, that was my aha moment.
And hey, those moments on the traffic will definitely cause some challenges and some changes in your temperature. But joking aside, the leadership life is one that is diverse, has multifaceted, points of contact. You're dealing with people on a day-to-day basis, and all of them bring different challenges, different changes to you, and to situations that you may be facing. So what are some strategies that you use with yourself or with your team to deal with change and challenge?
So one of the things, and first and foremost, and it kind of goes to the last question as well that you asked, and it applies to recruiting calls as well. You've got to ask the right questions, because it's so important. And the other thing is to seek first to understand and to be understood. We all have things going on in our lives, no matter how much it seems like we have together, and we have things that are on our mind that we don't necessarily share. So as a leader, sometimes I want to play whack-a-mole, just fix the problem, fix the problem, fix the problem. But there's much more to it than that. And the people that you work with, it's important to understand what they're experiencing and to get ideas from them. So number one, I seek feedback from people first before I run in there telling people what to do. I'll say, Enrique, I'll say, Vince, how do you see this problem? What are you seeing from your foxhole, so to speak? And they may be seeing something differently entirely. And quite frankly, the leader oftentimes doesn't see the problem for what it is. It's the people that are doing that are actually doing the labor and getting things done that know what's going on. And if you don't ask the question, you'll never know. For complex problems, I like to write stuff down because if it stays in my head, I get stressed out, right? So when I'm, I write all the things that are going down, all the factors, and there's something psychologists have determined, when you get that out of your head on paper, it's much easier to solve as a problem. The other thing is, I never solve it in a vacuum. There's this incredible CEO. His name escapes me. It's a small company, but very, 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 very successful. They have a small team, maybe about 10 or 12 people, with different ranks and everything, because it's not a flat organization. Before any major decision is made, everyone is brought together. They discuss it and they write down the pros and cons, and everyone has an equal vote. That's tremendous and that is powerful because the different perspectives are seen. So my point with that is get everyone's input, write it down, and then map out solutions, get feedback, and then refine. So when I reach challenges, I try to control my impulse because my impulses are almost never right. They're almost never right. Like when I go out shopping, do I really need that new headphones? I'm kidding. But I ask. I step back, I talk to my wife. My whole point is step back, discuss, and talk about it. And you'd be surprised what you hear. I mean, real quick, I had a recruiting call, and this candidate, incredible candidate, great background, Intel analyst role over at McGill. The long story short, I looked at his resume, had him on the phone. We're 20 minutes into it. Then I asked him this question. I said, sir, if you won the lottery and you didn't have to work in this particular area, what would your dream job be and what would you do for work? And he thought for a second, and then he said something completely different. Like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known that, but if I hadn't asked the question, right? And then I'm like, oh, okay, your passion's over here. We completely redirected the conversation and got him a job in a completely new field, and he's happy. So the point is, you got to ask the right questions. I know it was all over the place there, but that's kind of it.
No, I mean, great. Painted that picture perfectly with, asking the right questions, as you alluded to at the very beginning of the question about change and challenge, but also the opportunity to kind of take that step back. Don't stress, write it down is great advice, great challenge, that strategy down, the problem down, because, if it's in your head, it can stress you out. We definitely thank Dave and folks on the line listening, for everything he said, everything he inputted. But for folks who want to know how to get a hold of Jobhaus or you yourself, what do they need to do?
So we are very busy on LinkedIn. So Jobhaus, JOBHAUS, LLC.com. So you can go to our website. I encourage you to go ahead and find us on LinkedIn because we post every single day. As a recruiter, I'm probably on LinkedIn 4 or 5 hours a day. We post industry information. We post information about the military transition, but we give transition tips every Tuesday. It's called Transition Tuesday. So find us on LinkedIn, Jobhaus, LLC. You can do that. Type that right in the search bar, and you'll find us.
Outstanding, folks. We're going to make sure to have that as part of the show notes and video, so you can get a hold of Dave or Jobhaus, whichever you like. And folks, if you want to get a hold of us, the Leadership Void at gmail.com is where you'll send that inquiry if you want to see a special guest or you want us to cover a subject matter concerning leadership. We would like to entertain that. We also want to remind you that Radio Check 1st and 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern, 1900 for those inclined to the military time. Would love to have you join us. That's where we open the airways for those that may not have a voice to have a voice. Military, veteran, military spouse, first responders are all welcome, and the patriots of our nation are also welcome.
Yes, indeed. And talk about what we're doing with our sponsor. We have VEI. For those veterans that want to join the entrepreneurial route, Veteran Entrepreneurship Initiative, VEI, is here sponsoring us and also giving you some great tips on how to become an entrepreneur. And you know what? This week is National Guard's birthday. So a shout out to all those folks in the National Guard for their 386th birthday. So happy birthday to them, National Guard. But it's all about Dave today. Thanks, Dave, for being on our show. Hope you have a great day and much success in the future.
Thanks a lot, Vince. Thanks a lot, Enrique. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everybody.